Hello and welcome BitMonger family, Monger with you here today. And in today's video we are going to be taking a quick look at Bitcoin, and we will be also looking at a deep dive on Solana and why I believe it is extremely undervalued and we need to be looking at acquiring this one on any more dips. I mean, it is absolutely undervalued based on the metrics that I'm going to be looking at today and what I'm going to be showing you. And primarily we'll be looking at USDC, the minting of stable coins on Solana, and we will also be looking at RWA growth on Solana. And we'll also be looking at, this thesis. A lot of people have been moving around, their thesis on how they believe the 4-year cycle has changed and how it's broken. And you probably have seen it if you're following crypto, but I'm going to show you something that's backing that. And I seem to believe that's true as well. Let's face it, Bitcoin broke its all-time high pre-halving. The halving cycles are no longer as important. They still are something, but it's not like it was before. The decrease is becoming less and less impactful. So we'll be taking a look at these things. So the first thing I want to be looking at is Bitcoin's price here. And we can see Bitcoin's hovering right around 91,000. It did get up to 93K. It got rejected. It went down. I pulled a short on it. It went back up. I put a long on it. I got stopped out on that, and now it's dropping back down. But it is range bound, and right in between like 91 and 93K, we can see here. I'm looking at the daily chart right here, and if I zoom out on this one, we can see here is the long-term trend line here. And this is going back all the way back, over 3 years ago. And we can see it is just resting on it. This is a real critical level, guys. And currently, that you can see the dotted green line here, that's the current price. And if we go to the trend line, that's sitting right around 90,500 bucks is where the trend line sits currently. Now, could we go back below that? We certainly could, but it's an important point. I believe as long as we don't dip below this lower low here that we had here, I think we are still in a bull market, because we can as long as it doesn't drop below this point here, like right around 74K. What was that? Let's move that up. Yeah, right around 74, 75,000. As long as we don't drop below this lower point here, I do believe we are still in a bull market. Now, this long-term trend line, I believe, is very important though as well. I really don't like seeing it drop below that. The longer the time we do spin below that, the more likely we are going into a bear market. But we do have a lot of macro tailwinds coming in. One thing that we do have, we can see here, we have the Fed is looking at cut rates. Right now, there's on Polymarket, we got a 93% chance. I did hear recently that the labor numbers did come in fairly better than expected, so that might change this. But currently, people are betting that there's a 93% chance. We're going to know in about 4 days, right? What they're going to do there. So interesting. We'll see what that happens. This is positive for crypto generally when we get rate cuts. That usually spurs market and risk on activity. So Solana. Let's take a look at Solana and why I am so bullish on Solana, guys. First of all, USDC Circle. Okay, so I wanted to know, is Circle minting more stable coins in the past year on Ethereum or Solana? And I got some interesting information. Well, they have Circle, the issuers, mints tokens on multiple blockchains, including Ethereum, Solana. Minting refers to the creation of new USDC coins, which increases the circulating supply on that chain. Net minting minus burns reflects actual growth in available liquidity. Over the past year, from December 24th to December 25, Circle minted more USDC on Ethereum than on Solana. This is evidenced by Ethereum's dominant share of total USDC, 61 to 65%, which is huge, right? Absolute volume of net growth. Specific mining events show balanced large batches, but higher overall activity on Ethereum due to its scale. Total USDC growth from 41 billion to 60 billion, with Ethereum posting the majority. But this is where I think is important, guys. What we need to be looking at is where is it growing, you know. Now remember, let's take a quick look at this. Ethereum has got a market cap of $381 billion as compared to Solana's 77 billion. Solana is only, what is that, roughly 20% the size. So Solana is only 1/5 the size of Ethereum, okay? So back to this. So keeping that in mind. However, Solana showed explosive relative growth, which is with its supply share rising from less than 3% to 16%. And total minting reached 24 to 25 billion in 2025 alone, driven by DeFi demand and low fees. Despite this, Ethereum's larger base, 36 billion, versus Solana's 10 billion, means more absolute minting occurred there. So, I care more about growth and what's happening. So let's take a look at this. This is interesting too. So we can see we got key data comparison. We got the metric Ethereum, Solana. We got 65% on Ethereum, only 10% on Solana. Supply share, 36 of the 60 billion, right? Solana now is 17%, 10 billion. Usage, this one's interesting too, guys. Thinking about this, we got 65% on Ethereum, but it's only got, in November 25, 23.3% usage, where Solana has got 15%. So clearly, they are using more and more on Solana. Now, so let's look at these notable mints in 2025. 283 million May, 250 million August, part of 1.1 billion on Ethereum. We have 250 million May, 250 million August, 1 billion November, 750 million November 17th, 1.25 billion. So we can see that the growth is massively towards the end of the year, has been moving more and more towards Solana. Net supply growth, 21 billion total USDC growth, 70%. Solana, 3.8 billion to 10 billion, 6.2 billion plus net. Okay, so we can see Ethereum's absolute growth is higher, but Solana's relative growth is at 2.6x. That, to me, guys, is what we need to be paying attention to, because we can see that they are starting to gravitate more and more towards Solana. So, it talks about how it spiked in Q4 2025. That's currently, guys, so we need to be thinking about what's going on there. So Solana's been spiked in Q4 2025, fueled by meme coins, AI tokens, and institutional adoption. Example, BlackRock, PayPal. Ethereum benefited from layer 2's scaling, example, Base and Arbitrum. Okay, so implications. While Ethereum leads in volume, Solana's momentum suggests it close the gap in 2026 if DeFi DVL continues growing at 1.4 trillion in volume. So, very, very bullish, guys. Let's take a look at something else that I think is really eye-opening. So we have, I asked of all blockchain activity, what percent is done on Solana? So it talks about defining blockchain activity. Blockchain activity can be measured in various ways, as there's no single universal metric Common proxies include on-chain transactions, DeFi total value lock, DEX trading volume, active addresses, revenue fees generated. So we can see right here, Solana share on-chain activity, 44%. Transactions greater than 50%. DeFi TVL, 8 to 10%. But this is growing. It's growing quickly, guys. Look at this. It had a 10x year on year. So this thing is just massively growing, guys. DEX volume, 40 to 50% on the peaks. Blockchain revenue, 50 to 60%. Active addresses, 30 to 40%. So right here, if waiting toward meaningful activity, example DeFi DEX smart contracts where Solana excels, Solana accounts for 40 to 45% of total blockchain activity in 2025. Now tell me, if it accounts for 40 to 45% of all blockchain activity, why is it that it's only got a $77 billion market cap and Ethereum's got 381 billion? Why is it only 1/5 the size of this? That makes absolutely no sense to me. This is why I firmly believe Solana is extremely undervalued. Now let's look at something else that it talks about. Solana's growth is fueled by upgrades. Fire Dancer, so it's going to be able to do, over 1,200 TP transactions per second. Meme coin frenzy and institutional inflows. 760 million into Solana ETPs in October. However, critics note risks like centralization and scam culture in meme coins. So it talks about centralization. So, let's take a look at Solana's centralization, and let's look at it compared to its competitors. So right here, I looked at, give me a list of the top 10 blockchains based on the Nakamoto coefficient. If you guys aren't familiar with the Nakamoto coefficient, here it is right here. So the Nakamoto coefficient measures blockchain decentralization by calculating the minimum number of entities, validators, or miners needed to control a majority of the network stake, typically 33% for proof of stake or 51% for proof of work. Higher values indicate greater decentralization and resilience against collusion. Based on the latest available data as of mid-2025, sourced from trackers like Nakaflow and Analysis up to September 25. Here is a rank of the top 10 blockchains. Note the exact rankings can fluctuate with network changes. So, in the top, we have Polkadot, which just so happens to be a zombie chain. Never got adoption. I don't know what's going on with that, but it absolutely stinks. Next, we have Cardano, and this is where Cardano is strong. But the problem with Cardano is, if you look at users on chain, nobody's using the thing. Absolutely nobody. There's no TVL. There's no DEXs. It is just impressive. This is the only thing impressive currently about Cardano is its Nakamoto coefficient. Other than that, there's nothing really to be said. Avalanche 24, Thorchain 29, Solana 29, Cosmos 180. Cosmos 2 appears to be the most decentralized, but that one too has really struggled. It did get a pump towards the beginning. Some of its chains that are built on the Cosmos hub, but it has been struggling as well. We don't see the same sort of adoption happening. Mina, Tezos, Algorand, and Near. So here we have the top ones. Solana is number 5. Okay, tied for number 4. Okay. Wait a second. Looking at these, so the larger the number, the more decentralized it is. So pretty good, not bad at all. It's in the top 10, right? Now, what is Ethereum? And this is a shocker, guys. So I asked, Ethereum's Nakamoto coefficient as of late 2025. Ethereum's Nakamoto coefficient is 2. Now I got some other data that said it was 5. Let's give it the benefit of the doubt, and let's round it up, and let's say it's 5. That still is horrible when you consider it compared to these, right? Now, let's be honest. If the market really did care just about Nakamoto coefficients, you know, Cosmos and Polkadot would be the top chains. So clearly, they don't care about it too much, but a lot of people like to note it as how it's secure, you know, because the higher the coefficient, the more secure it is. Now, Ethereum clearly is not that secure based on the Nakamoto coefficient, as I just read earlier. And we can see right here. And this really changed in 2022 when they flipped from proof of work over to proof of stake. And we can see that it has really consolidated into 2 entities. So the coefficient is 2. That means just 2 entities, Lido, 28 to 32% of staked ETH, and Coinbase, 13 to 15%, control over 33% of the network stake, posing risk of centralization. This is a decline from proof of stake around 3 of mining pools, and highlights ongoing concerns about staking centralization. Bam. So guys, you know, this idea of them saying, you know, centralization on Solana, that's a freaking joke when you measure it compared to its #1 competitor of Ethereum. Come on, let's be real, okay? Now, the next thing that I wanted to talk about is RWA growth on the Solana blockchain. So I asked, give me data on RWA growth on Solana compared to other chains, and this is what I got here. Overview on RWA growth on Solana versus other chains. Real-world assets refer to tokenized versions of traditional assets like treasuries, bonds, real estate, and private credit brought on chain. As of late 2025, the global RWA market has surged to over $36 billion in total value, excluding stablecoins, up from $14 billion a year prior, driven by institutional adoption and regulatory clarity. Solana has emerged as a high-growth contender, leveraging its low fees, high throughput, and fast finality to attract yield-bearing RWAs like tokenized U.S. Treasuries. However, Ethereum remains dominant with 52 to 58% market share due to its security, liquidity, and established protocols. So, Ethereum's got a moat, but based on the Nakamoto coefficient that we just looked at, we could argue that it's not necessarily that secure. I mean, we could see that, you know, Lido and Coinbase are potential problems. It's not that decentralized. Liquidity, yes. Establishment, protocol, yes. It's just been around longer, so it does have that moat. And I'm not hating on Ethereum. I still think it's probably a good bet, but I just think Solana is going to have more growth going forward based on what I'm seeing. So, yield-bearing RWAs, Treasury dominates greater than 40% of non-stable coin TVL across chains. Solana's RWA TVL non-stable coin hit 827 million in November 2025, with 105,000 plus holders, up 2,000% year to date. So it's grown. It's done a 20x year to date. Growth is uneven. Solana leads in velocity. 40 million transaction volume per holder, but Ethereum hosts the largest absolute volumes. So we can see, guys, it is growing very, very quickly. There was something else in here that I wanted to show you. Here we go. Total global RWA TVL is 29 to 36 billion, up 196 to 380% from January 2024. So this is the total. Solana's edge in growth rate outpaces Ethereum by 2 to 3 times year to date, closing the gap from 0.4 to 4% market shares. Protocols like Ondo and Figure, SEC, registered yields migrated for cost and speed. And just so you guys know, BlackRock's BUIDL also just did a massive conversion and moved over to Solana, guys. So, challenges. Solana's TVL is 6 to 15% of Ethereum's. Liquidity remains shallower. Other chains like ZK Sync, 17% share, benefit from Ethereum alignment. So, yeah, I mean, these layer 2s help Ethereum with the cost and speed, but I can tell you right now, guys, they are more centralized than Ethereum, which isn't that central, which is already extremely centralized. So this makes me, again, extremely bullish on Solana, guys. This is why I would not be sleeping on this chain. I would be looking to buy in. I would be dollar cost averaging, and at these rates, if we get capitulation, you know, I would be backing up the truck. I do think Solana is going to be a clear leader going forward. So keep your eyes on it, guys. And this is the reasoning that people are now thinking of why the cycle is broken. And it's all based around the ISM. You've probably heard it if you follow Rand Paul. He's a big one on this. You know, everything is broken. When we look at liquidity, we've seen that has broken. When we look at its correlation to gold, we see that is broken. When we look at it compared to the stocks, we can even see that is broken as well. Now, my theory is this. I believe that the big whales used the 4-year cycle theory and the fact that they now that they have Wall Street, they were able to dump their coins without absolutely crashing the market because we have all these ETF buyers. And they use the psychological point of everyone believing into these 4-year cycles. They use that to their advantage to cause more panic and pain and dumping. So whales have been repurchasing up some of their Bitcoin. Unfortunately, I don't have the data right here in front of me, but just take my word for it on it. So they dumped knowing that, you know, they could get buyers without crashing the market, Wall Street buyers, and using the psychology of the 4-year cycle. Now, everyone is saying, okay, well, we can see here, it's really based around the ISM happening, and that is an increase in economic activity, and that also comes with increased liquidity as well. So we have Bitcoin. We can see here the cycle 3.91 years, you know, right? And here's the ISM. We can see when it was peaking here, Bitcoin went up. Bitcoin's the white line. ISM is the red line, right? So we can see here, it went up. We can see here, it went up. We can see here, it went up. And currently, we are here. We're under 50 on the ISM. And as this starts to pull up, Bitcoin and our altcoins should rally. And that should happen sometime in 2026 as we get more easing of credit. And that should spur this. At least that's the hopes now. And hopefully that is on. I believe it will be. So just some points there, guys, that for consideration and what people are thinking and why they believe 2026 will be a bullish year. Now remember, usually January and February are not too good for stocks. So like I said in my last video, I believe end of Q1 and going into Q2, especially with the new Fed chair, I believe the cycle will run hot, and that will really pump up our bags. Now, in conclusion, we can see that Solana is extremely undervalued, guys. So let's take a look at Solana's price action, and we can see that it is down 1% on the day. And here, this is the 50-day moving average. Okay, It would be nice to see it get above that. We can see these key zones here that I've marked off previously. You know, if it gets down back here into this zone, that's at around 120,000, 127, 120,000 in this area, I consider it a buy. And if it does happen to get down to this level here, this orange line at around $93, anywhere between $93 to $100, I would be absolutely scooping it up, guys. So that's what I'm doing. I'm sitting on a bunch of cash right now. I'm being patient. I'm looking for some sort of, you know, validation of where we are going. I would honestly like to see Bitcoin. For me, I would really like to see Bitcoin get above around this bottom here that we can see. We're looking at the daily chart. This marker right here is like right around 98K. I think it's 98.6, 98.7K. I would like to see it get above that. For a lot of people, they're looking at this one here, which is, I think that's the, what is that? The 50-day, yeah, it's the 50-day moving average, this white line. A lot of people use this as a reference. So that's another one. And currently that's sitting at like right around $100,250. So we need to see it get above a 98, you know, $100,000, and hold that to really get bullish again. Otherwise, this could just be completely a relief rally, and we could be coming back down to test these lower numbers. And as I mentioned earlier, I would, you know, until it actually drops below this lower point, I would not consider, this could still be considered just a large corrective move before we get upside momentum. All right, this video has gone on a lot longer than I had expected, but there's my thoughts for you. Hope you guys are all doing well, and monger on.